Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Filmi Ladies. I am Beth. With me is co-host Pitu and very, very, very friendly appearance special guest, Amrita.
Yay!
Hello, filmy ladies.
She is the filmiest lady we know, and we're so glad she's
Yes.
here. We are talking today about Indian adaptations of Jane Austen novels. Amrita, like us, is a big fan of the source materials. She also has a book YouTube channel, which she can shout out at the end of this episode. So we know she's accustomed to talking about books and accustomed to talking about Indian films because she is one of the 3 co-hosts of the Khandaan Podcast, which probably everyone who's listening to this already knows. So we're super excited that she's here. We have 3 films to talk with you about today. Each of us is kind of leading up one of the film discussions, and then we'll move around the circle. And we're going to start with Pitu. What did you watch, Pitu?
I watched one of my favorite movies of all time, which is the 2000 Rajiv Menon film. It's in Tamil. It's called Kandukondain Kandukondain, or I Have Found It. And it is an adaptation of Sense and Sensibility. I've seen a lot of Sense and Sensibility adaptations, and Kandukondain is hands down my favorite. Mostly because I love the direction and I love the casting. Tabu as Eleanor kills it, and then Aishwarya Rai as as Marianne kills it. There's Mammootty, there's Ajit, there's Abbas. The music is spectacular. And every frame in this movie is so beautiful. It's Rajiv Menon, so of course it's going to be really, really pretty, and it's just very watchable. And I feel like it's very true to the source material, but also set so beautifully in South India. Like, it starts with the village of Pugundi, and then it moves on to like the big city of Chennai, and it's such a great adaptation.
The music in that movie is just so spectacular. All the
songs. The choreography too. So I don't speak a single word of Tamil. And in 2000, when this movie came out, and I'm a giant like Aishwarya Rai fan, and the soundtrack was just so amazing that back in those days when you had like blogs and stuff, in the ancient times, I found like a lyrics and music blog, and this person had written down all the Tamil lyrics of this movie, but in like a Romanized script. So I printed everything out and I memorized every single thing just so I could sing along to my cassette. And the best part was that because I don't speak Tamil, my pronunciations were horrendous, but I would insist on singing along. I'd be like, Kanna, Muchi, and all my Tamil friends were like, no, please stop. We cannot hear this abomination. And I'm like, no, but I want to sing. And they were like, no, not in front of us. That was kind of the power of Kandukondain. And I'm very much an evangelist, where I'm like, if you want to watch Tamil movies and you've never watched Tamil movie or anything like that, you really should at least start with Kandukondain. It's so lovely. There isn't a bad word I can say about this movie. Sorry. So
I think it's also really commendable that it is one of the few Jane Austen adaptations that really, like you said, gets the casting right. Like, especially the one where Mammootty plays the Colonel.
Yes.
And that is so integral to that story and to who these characters are and how they interact with each other. And it needed to be somebody who was that much older than Aishwarya, and it needed to be something that was believable. And I think like this is probably the most believable that I've found Aishwarya in any of her roles. Like I'm a fan too, but I've never thought that she was like the best actress.
Right.
But in this particular movie, she really nailed who that character is. And you see that entire journey that she takes, and it's really believable. And at the end, when Mammootty finds out that she's in love with him and he has that little breakdown on the stairs, it is like you needed somebody who was that good an actor to pull that off. And I would never have thought that Mammootty and Aishwarya Rai would have like amazing chemistry, but they did. Like, they have like amazing chemistry in this movie. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he is super endearing in this movie, and I love how she's in love with Shrikant, who is like such a cad. His character reminds me so much of Farooq Sheikh in Katha, where he's just such a slime ball, and I want to slap him every time he comes on screen. Not that I want to slap Farooq Sheikh because he's an angel, but I love how Shrikant is always talking about like Bhartiya's poetry and all this like, rosy stuff. And then Mammootty is like talking about fertilizers and being a commando and having his leg blown off. And it's like, maybe that's the reason that you can't get dates, Bala. But he's just so endearing and cute. And it's such a great combination of being like wise, but also very naive in a lot of ways. Like he's lovely. And before we started recording, I was chatting with Beth and I was telling her that I was thinking of like alternate castings for this movie just because it's something I like to do. And I was thinking, who would have been great as Tabu and Aishwarya's roles, but like 40 years ago? Or maybe 50 years ago, it would have been the Pathak sisters,
Yes.
right? Like
They would
Ratna
have been
Pathak is
amazing.
Eleanor, and Supriya Pathak is like this very lively, exuberant, slightly manic pixie dream girl light kind of a person. And like the Pathak sisters could have been great. And then Nasir could have been like the nice person that this person that Ratna marries, like in real life. And then Pankaj Kapoor could be like the slightly bitter, gimpy veteran. And I was so excited with this casting. And I was like, I have to tell someone, I have to tell my filmy ladies this casting because I just thought it would be so cool. So yes.
But for me, like this casting is just perfect. Like Tabu
It
and
is.
Aishwarya, why haven't they been in like more movies together? I don't understand.
Their chemistry is impeccable. And I've seen a lot of like behind the scenes sort of stuff with them and even like film premieres and stuff where they just have so much warmth with each other. Like when they greet each other and stuff, it's like you can see that there's a lot of love and affection between Aishwarya and Tabu. And they just play off of each other so perfectly. Like first of all, we just need more Tabu. That's just bottom line. But then also more Tabu with Aishwarya, Tabu with Vidya Balan. Like there's so many people I would love to see Tabu with Konkana. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm trying to think of like other movies in which Aishwarya had a female co-star with whom she had like, like an extended role. And I can't really think of anything offhand. I know that she's going to be, so Ponniyin Selvan is coming out at the end of this month, as Pitu and I were talking earlier. And I know she's playing the antagonist in that, and that she and Trisha's character have quite a relationship. I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'm not going to say anything more. But I can't really think about.
I know one.
Yeah, which one?
Chokher Bali.
Yes.
So in Chokher Bali, their friendship, I forget who was the actress. It wasn't Raima Sen, was it Raima Sen?
Yeah, Raima
Sen. So that was so integral. I mean, to me, the biggest point about Chokher Bali was their friendship more than even like the guy was like, whatever, who cares about you? But it was like her and Raima Sen and like their friendship, but also all those undercurrents. I mean, that was really good. But that's maybe the only thing I can think of.
Sorry, Beth, I didn't mean to cut you off before. What were you saying?
You're fine. This is a very minor point. In retrospect, I feel like having the Edward Farah's character, it's not that he's engaged elsewhere, he's making a movie.
Yes.
That's maybe not quite as much of an obstacle, even though we all know what the artists are like, right? But
yes.
I in retrospect, I kind of wish that was maybe done a little bit differently. And it's not, his performance is flawless. I have no notes, but just sort of setting that up. That's really my only teensy weensy with this otherwise perfect film.
Yeah. My favorite thing about all these Austen books, though, by the way, or any book from that era, like the Brontes and everyone, is that anytime someone slips and sprains their leg or falls or something, they always end up at like some random neighbor's house. And then the neighbor is always extremely hot, but also like difficult. And then they end up just staying there for a month. Like, who does that? I've never done that in my life. When I broke my leg, my mother put me in a rickshaw that was on a bumpy road and took me to the hospital. And, it was a very grumpy doctor who treated me. I didn't get to stay at some like very hot, like neighbor's house. None of my neighbors were hot. So I think I'm a little bitter about it. But yes, that is just a small point I wanted to make. Why does this happen in these books?
Unrealistic expectations. That's why.
Yes. Speaking of unrealistic expectations from books, how has there not been a Bollywood adaptation of Wuthering Heights? Or has there been?
There has.
I need someone hot to be cast as Heathcliff.
No, it was Dilip Kumar and Wahida Rahman in Dard Liya.
Dil Diya Dard Liya.
Dil Diya Dard Liya. That's the one. It goes on for like hours. Like it just literally goes on and on and on until you're ready to die. Like it's the worst.
That's what they mean by Dard Liya. It's like the audience ne Dard Liya.
I mean, he's playing he plays Heathcliff and then he plays Rochester, right? Because he's in the Jane Eyre adaptation, and you're like,
yes. Well, I think he played Rochester first, and then he played Heathcliff. I mean,
we need a new Heathcliff.
No, we don't. The world does not need Heathcliff whatsoever. That's okay. We can just skip right over. That's all right.
But he's the classic literature fuckboy.
Exactly, and we don't need them. We don't need them. The devotion with which like every generation reinvents that character, like we don't need the original one. That's all right. We can put him to rest.
Yeah. Fine, whatever.
Beth, talking about movies that are painful, do you want to talk about yours?
Sure, I can pop this in here. And talking about movies where Aishwarya has female co-stars, I watched Bride and Prejudice. I don't have a lot to say about this film as a film. It's not very good. It is not unpleasant, but it doesn't offer anything. That
is such a Midwestern comment, by the way. It is not unpleasant.
It isn't. Like, I was happy to spend some time with it. And once we do this, I'll probably never watch it again. Like I don't think anybody is awful in it, but I also don't think anybody is very good. Except Anupam Kher. I thought he was quite good, but I don't want to praise him publicly. You could cast anyone in any of these roles and it wouldn't have mattered. Martin Henderson, being an American, first of all, he's much better at it now in Virgin River than he was, in the early 2000s in this role. Why is that character American? No reason. Just let him be New Zealand. They don't have any particular chemistry. She doesn't have none particular chemistry with her sisters, although I do think No Life Without Wife is a cute song, but that's about it. And Wickham and the sister, like nobody really does anything noteworthy in this film. And it's too bad because it was a good idea, I think. And I love Bend It Like Beckham. I really love Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, another of her films. That's really cute. But for me,
I love Baji on the Beach. That is such a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know what went wrong with it.
I liked Viceroy's House perfectly fine. Again, I don't think it's great, but I thought that was fine. For me, the only important thing about this movie is it is what got me started watching Bollywood. So it is, the sine qua non of my personal, life. But other than that, I've got nothing to say about this film any one way or the other. Do either of you remember anything about it that means anything to you at this point?
Sorry, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say is that I've never seen such pathetic chemistry between Aishwarya Rai and a male co-actor. Like, she would have better chemistry with a sack of potatoes. And it is so central and integral to this movie that they should have good chemistry. So I just don't understand. Like, I feel nothing when I see them on screen. And I'm just like, whatever, who cares? So I don't know, did they not screen test them together or something? It's just really you just don't get involved at all. You just don't care, really.
So if I remember correctly, Martin Henderson was this really conscious of the fact that he was in a musical, a Bollywood musical. And I don't know what he thought the role was going to be before he auditioned for it and got it. But whatever it was, like once he got it, I think he had like full-blown regret, and then he didn't know how to get himself out of it. So the whole time you can see him visibly cringe through the scenes where he's supposed to be like romantic or Mr. Darcy or whatever. He really does not want to be in that film, and you can just see how much he does not want to be in that film. And also, like we were talking about Aishwarya doing Kandukondain Kandukondain, but Aishwarya is very much a director's actress, which is why I feel like her Tamil movies are so much better than most of her Hindi work, whether she's working with Mani Ratnam or Rajiv Menon or whatever.
And
Bengali also, yes. Because she works with like a different caliber of directors when she's working in non-Hindi cinema. But in Bend It Like Beckham, I don't know, like there's like this thing that happens to her sometimes in Hindi cinema where you can really see that the director really just left her to do whatever it was that that she wanted to do, and didn't really like put any effort into directing her whatsoever, because you can see that she's floundering on screen. And I get why a lot of the younger directors that she's worked with probably reacted like that, because you have like Aishwarya Rai, she's gorgeous, she just like fills up the screen, and you're just like, yes, amazing, no notes, we love it. But of course, like when you see the final product, you're just like, why is she behaving like this? Like, she just like sticks out like a sore thumb. And I honestly feel like Aishwarya would have been like a bigger star if she had like worked with better directors, honestly speaking. And with Gurinder Chadha, I think like that is what happened. Like Gurinder was just so enamored of the fact that she was able to cast the Aishwarya Rai, that she just let Aishwarya do like whatever. And she probably found Aishwarya very charming. But the thing is, like, the way that she performs that character, if I remember correctly, it's not very charming. It's very arch.
She's crabby.
It's very bratty. It's very brattish.
And it's just this weird. And also Aishwarya during that time was like in her personal life too. Like, I don't know if you remember, like when she was on David Letterman, for example, it sort of like bled into her personal life. Like she went from being this like very like sweet, charming young woman to like whatever she went through in the Hindi film industry just turned her into like this really like cranky, crabby, like Pitu said, person. And you can just like really see that in her personal life. And I think it's sort of like bled onto her on-screen performances. But yeah, to answer your question, Beth, like I do not have good memories of this film. I've seen it just once. I don't ever want to see it again. I think I saw it once for my channel, like my YouTube channel at some point last year or something, and I regretted it immediately.
Even like last year, you're already like, I've forgotten that I saw it a year ago.
Yes. Yeah.
There are two things I meant to shout out. One is the snake dance.
Oh yeah.
That's excellent. And that poor actress obviously has been dragged and redragged for her role in that horrible Fardeen Khan film. But
Meghna Kothari.
Yeah, she's very, very funny as Mary. I thought she that whole the idea of that performance and everyone being like, she does it is very funny. I also want to praise Naveen Andrews as Bingley. He was quite charming, I thought. In the film, really, like when they arrive in Amritsar, he's excited to be at his friend's wedding. He's on the dance floor, like everything. I thought he was pretty fun. And if it was one of those films you're like, oh, Busy and Lizzie and Bingley, like, oh man, now maybe that's because Jane is like also there. That's not a great performance either. But he's trying and does something, I think, in the film. But yeah, it is generally quite forgettable, and there's no reason to
Naveen Andrews for me is a little bit weird because I really appreciate him as an actor, but every time I try to think of him as like a romantic lead, he's just too greasy for me. Like, I don't know what it is, but I mean, like, literally greasy. Like, it's not even like a
Yeah.
metaphorical thing. Like, it just looks like he stepped out of a vat of oil. And I'm just like, why do you look like that? Like, what is happening? I don't know what that is. But
There's just
I'm
something
sorry, I'm
icky about
shallow.
him. I've never liked Naveen Andrews. As in, I know he's a good actor, and I'll see him in a movie, and I'm like, okay, that was a good performance. But he always gives me the ick. And I don't know if it's because of the oiliness, like you mentioned, but there is something a little bit smarmy about him that
which is
makes me go,
why which is why I think he was so great playing the opposite what's her name, Amanda, um the movie that came out earlier this year, last year, what is time, but he plays the Indian guy who was like sort of the boyfriend
oh,
turned like,
In the
the
dropout.
queen or something,
the what?
the queen or something, right? Like
No, not the
Abdul and
queen.
The dropout.
No. The Dropout. That's what it
okay,
is. Yeah. Not no. That is Ali Fazal.
okay.
That is
We love.
that's
Right.
yeah. We love
Who
him.
else? You know who else has that sort of Naveen Andrews-ish vibe where it's like you're, although I don't even think he's that good an actor, but also gives me the ick is Jim Sarb. And anytime I hear about people fangirling over Jim Sarb, I'm like, why? You know he's
Good.
like a red flag. He's like a walking red flag. Stay away from Jim Sarb. But he gives me the ick too. I guess we're all shallow people. It's fine. I own up to my shallowness.
I actually like Jim Serb. Like I think like he does that particular character really well. I
Mhm.
think he needs to do another character soon. Like I don't know
Right.
why he's just like, he's like really comfortable playing that one particular character.
Yeah.
But I thought for me, like he was the part that I really enjoyed about Padmavat. Because
Mm.
I really didn't enjoy a lot about that movie, but like I enjoyed Jim Serb and his performance in that movie.
I like Jim Sarb and Gangubai Kathiawadi. Small role, but he was cute.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
yeah.
liked him in that. But that was it. That was the only role of his where he didn't give me the ick.
All
Yeah.
right.
There's another Midwestern compliment.
Amrita,
He's
talk to
okay. He
us.
didn't give me the ick.
Amrita, talk to us about your adaptation because I think the complaints of mine are probably going to fall away when we talk about yours.
Yes. So mine was Aisha, which is this 2000 and I want to say 10 movie about which is like an adaptation of Emma. And to me, like this is one of the best adaptations of Jane Austen's
Mhm.
Emma. Just because it has Sonam Kapoor, who absolutely nails that character in an Indian context. I haven't seen this movie in a very long time, but I remember when it came out and I really enjoyed it. And I was like maybe one of 5 people who enjoyed it, and everybody else was just like, ew. But then I think over the past like 10, 12 years, more people have discovered it. And I think I won't say they've seen what I see in this movie, but I think we have established that it is probably one of the better adaptations of Jane Austen, especially in India. I don't know why we don't adapt more Jane Austen novels in India. I have no idea why, because it fits so perfectly. And I
Yeah.
think Sonam and her sister, and I think this was the first Kapoor sisters production, if I'm not mistaken. But one of the things that really interested me when I was rewatching this film is that how we talk about how the Akhtars, Zoya and what's his face, Farhan.
Farhan.
So how we talk about the actors having a certain design aesthetic in their films, and you can always tell that this is an Excel movie,
Hmm.
especially when it's being directed by either Zoya or Farhan. But I think the Kapoor sisters also have a very strong design aesthetic when it comes to their movies, whether it's
Hmm.
Aisha or Really the Wedding, etc. And you can really see that come through. And what was really interesting to me is that this movie does not look dated the way that so many movies from that era do, especially in terms of the fashion. Which makes sense because, of course, Ria and Sonam are like fashion it girls. And I think Ria did, all the costumes and things for this film, and they're pretty out there. And I remember, like, this is really a trip back to Delhi from like that era, because I remember, like, there's a scene where she's doing the makeover for her her pet project, and she takes this character called Shafali to the ritziest mall in Delhi, which was also back then the ritziest mall in India, which is DLF Emporio. And it's so quaint to watch it now because, the way that they focus on the brands, it's like, oh my God, it's Louis Vuitton. And I mean, it's amazing. Like, those are the things that it's sort of like a time capsule, that you kind of see like what aspirational living looked like in India back then. And I think like that's also the Kapoor sisters brand, it's like all about aspirational living. But this is possibly like one of my favorite. This and Khoobsurat are my two Sonam Kapoor movies that I really like. I really enjoyed her performance in the movie that she did with Dhanush, but I don't think Ranjana, but I don't think I can call it my favorite because it's like depressing. But Aisha and Khoobsurat are not depressing. They're excellent, pajama fare. Like if you want to pop some corn and like, have like a lovely evening at home, then both of these movies work really well. And Aisha is just, I don't know, it's a good time, and they do a really good job of using like like all the things that that early 19th century England was obsessed with, like upper class society was obsessed with, fit almost seamlessly into the upper class of Delhi. So yeah, it was fun, I think. Did either one of you rewatch it?
I love Aisha. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Well, not like all time, that's extreme, but I do like it very much. And my best friend and I actually love to quote from it. So sometimes we'll just be like chatting, and then I'll be like, इसको विक्टोरिया सीक्रेट की चड्डी पहनाएंगे, विक्टोरिया सीक्रेट बंद पड़ जाएगा. Or like, something like that. Or I mean, it's just so fun. I love Ira Dubey in it. Why doesn't she do more movies? She's so bratty and snotty but hilarious. Like, I love her in that movie. I like Abhay Deol in the movie. Then there's that dialogue that Amrita Puri has that is so funny. Like, I stopped saying maroon because there's that scene where she says, मैं ना मनीष मल्होत्रा का मेहरून लहंगा पहनूंगी. After that, I started saying mehrun. And my friend was like, what is mehrun? I was like, haven't you seen Aisha? So it's one of those like fun. To me, it's what Clueless is. Like, I can watch Clueless 100 million times and I can watch Aisha 100 million times. So it's just a lot of fun. It's a rollicking good time. It doesn't annoy me in any way. Khoobsurat is actually an extremely annoying movie. So I am going to disagree with you and Beth because I think it's terrible. Because I love Rekha's Khoobsurat. And I'm like, girl, you are not Rekha. Don't even try. So I just can't get past that mental block where I'm like, you tried to do Rekha and Khoobsurat. I just can't get past it. It's a thing. But I do like Aisha. And I thought of this one point when you were saying that, how it fits so seamlessly into Delhi society. I think that in a way is the genius of Jane Austen, right? Like, she's long dead and gone. And yet her stories were so, they were so universal, and the characters are so believable. That's magic. That you can adapt her movie into any kind of society, into any kind of time zone, put any kind of like visual aesthetics and stuff into it, and it still resonates. How many books have that kind of power? And I think that's one of like the most amazing things about Austen. You can take any of her books, and like you said, Amrita, I wish that there were more Bollywood adaptations of Jane Austen because she is very adaptable for our cinema. Beth has feelings about Aisha. Share your feelings, Beth.
So first I want to say that was written, it was written by from blog days, our old friend Devika Bhagat, and it was so exciting to see one of her movies. And she's got several. Manorama 6 Feet Under is one of hers, for example. Very different, very different kinds of.
Very good.
I remember being kind of meh about this movie the first time I saw it, and then I watched it again with some friends here who don't have particular ties to Indian cinema but are Jane Austen fans, because duh.
Yeah.
Then I liked it a lot more, kind of with another group of Jane Austen-y people, and I have not revisited it. But it sounds like I probably should. And all the things that you're both saying that you like about it, I'm like, oh, I can see how that would be the case. I don't remember most of that, but I do need to give it a try. I really dislike Sonam as an actor, except for Khubsurat. I really dislike her. So that's probably that's probably the main reason I haven't gone back to this, but I haven't revisited it since Khubsurat. So maybe I should, give it.
So the thing with Sonam is, yeah, she's terrible. I absolutely despise her acting. But the thing is, in Aisha, she's basically playing herself. It's not even acting. It's almost like you just gave Sonam Kapoor a different name and you just followed her around with a camera, which is why it works, because it's just Sonam being Sonam. So that's great. And I think that she's almost like a genius because she's figured this out. As long as she just plays herself and is not actually acting, she does fine. Like, I liked her in Veere the Wedding. I just don't like Khubsurat as a movie, but she was fine, I guess. But it's like, as long as she plays this sort of like entitled or kind of like bratty person, or person who basically lives in a bubble, she does okay. It's when you try to get her to show any kind of like awareness of the world that she lives in and to actually do a good job, that's when she flounders. But I think Aisha works for me because I just think it's like Sonam Kapoor being herself,
So if you're trying to find a movie in which you will like Sonam Kapoor, then this is not the movie for you, because I think one of the things that this movie really nails is how unlikable Emma is as a person. And why the fact that she doesn't get that she's unlikable and she thinks she's amazing. And then you see her in context and you're like, wow.
Amrita, I feel like you're discussing me. I felt very triggered. I was like, wait, is this a jab at me?
I didn't say anything. So I also feel like, like when I was saying that Kandukondain really nails his casting by allowing the colonel to be an older man, like a significantly older man. One of the things that most adaptations of Emma, in fact, I'm trying to think of an adaptation of Emma that doesn't do this, and I can't think of one. But one of the things that a lot of the adaptations of Emma don't get right is the character of Knightley. And I don't think they get it right here either, because Knightley is supposed to be, significantly older than Emma. But what it does do is that it creates a character in Abhay Deol who is possibly one of the best like gentlemanly characters that I've seen in Bollywood cinema, which there's no like toxic masculinity on display whatsoever. He is very much the moral center of a world, in not a preachy way, but in a very like gentle, like, why are you this way? Why can't you be a better person?
Back to earth.
And I really enjoy that. And this is possibly the height of Abhay Deol as a romantic lead. And of course, he then like turned around and pooped all over it in press. So yeah.
I never understood that. What is the tea on this? Like, what? First of all, why does Abhay Deol always shit all over the people he works with? It's like, I want to like him, but he just comes across as so like bratty and ungrateful. He always goes on these like Twitter rants and he says these mean things in interviews where he's like, that person sucked and this person sucked. And it's like, okay, you have a problem with everyone.
yeah, when you have a problem with everyone, maybe you should take a look at you.
Yeah.
You know, but like Kitu, he's an artist. He's so tortured. Oh, so sad. Yeah, no, a legend in his own mind. But like this was like one of the, like, he could have really capitalized on this film. It's really sad that he couldn't see beyond the fact that it was a fluffy adaptation of Jane Austen.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Sonam and Ria told him off in public about it. You know, so yeah.
Also, I know that Abhidil seems to think no end of himself, which is hilarious because, like I said, I do love Clueless very, very much. I love Alicia Silverstone in it. I love Brittany Murphy in it, but I love Paul Rudd in it. It's Paul Rudd. How can you not love the man? He is the most endearing human being alive. And it's like, Abhidil, you ain't no Paul Rudd. Okay, so just like don't even try. I mean, I just don't understand where this like amazing opinion of himself comes from. He's fine, but I've literally never heard of anyone say that Abhay Deol was like their favorite actor or anything. It's like, okay.
But you know what this movie did do, and this is again like one of the things that I really appreciate about the Kapoor sisters. They're really good at taste making and at like not discovering new talent, but in featuring new talent in ways that makes them more accessible to the culture at large. And I think that is what happened in this movie soundtrack, because I think this was the first big Amit Trivedi album. And it blew me out of the water when I first heard it. And it is still one of my favorite albums of all time. Like, it is fantastic.
Even the lyrics, like of the title song of Aisha, the lyrics are so good. Every single line basically tells you why Aisha is not all those things that she seems to think she is. It's these very like these calculated barbs and jibes, but it's funny and cute. And there's this like whole big band swing music happening, but it's kind of like, yeah, you're not that great. Calm down. It's fun. It's so snarky. It's such a good soundtrack though. Yeah, I agree.
Any closing thoughts about Austen in India? Any wishes for a specific project? Like, we all agree more could be made, but is there one that you're dying to see?
I want more like of anything that Jane Austen wrote, really. Like, I think like we just need to see more of Austen in India, because I think it'll work magnificently well.
Yeah.
It's eminently suited, I think, to Indian cinema and Indian tastes. I would like to see more Bronte. I know this is an episode on Austen, but I would like to see more Bronte. I wish there was more. I really love Rebecca. It's one of my favorite books. And there's only one Rebecca adaptation that I know. I think it's Mera Saya. And so I'd like to see Kohra. So I want to see more of that because that would be cool. Who else? I love Maya Memsab, which is such a good adaptation of Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. That's really good too. I would love to do an episode on that. That is just such a good movie. I actually once incurred, back in the Twitter days, I incurred the wrath of SRK fans because SRK was doing one of his rare, chats on Twitter where he was actually responding to people, and I shut that chat down. So he had been going on for like half an hour, and it was so much fun. And then I, of course, me and my big mouth, I had to tweet him where I was like, my favorite movie of you is Maya Memsab. You were so amazing in it. And he just shut down. He was like, okay, good night for now. Bye. Love you guys. And I was like, was it me? What did I do that? And then my direct messages and it was filled with nasty replies from people. And one of my dearest friends replied to me. She was like, you are the one, because he really hates Maya Memsab, which is something I've never understood. He's very embarrassed and ashamed of his role in it. And so I was one.
He's not embarrassed of his role in it, but basically it was one of the roles that created a lot of drama in his life at the time. I think that it just has really bad memories for him, if I remember correctly.
So I re-traumatized him. Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
Probably there were
Basically,
20,000 other trolls going at him at the same time, and it wasn't actually you.
yeah, yeah, that's also there. Yeah.
Maybe.
Not always about us, Pitu.
See, maybe I am Aisha. I don't know. I was like, that time that I shut down Shah Rukh Khan's chat, but he really doesn't like talking about Mayam himself.
No, he nearly went to jail over it because they did this thing where like some journalist for Stardust or something wrote a article about how like the sex scenes between him and what's her name?
Deepa
The
Sahi.
Deepa Sahi. And it was directed by Deepa Sahi's husband, by the way,
Yeah.
the movie. And they basically said that she was basically his affair partner, and like it was some sort of like weird like sex project, and they were apparently like
Okay.
filming like actual porn or something like when they were shooting. And he was about to get married to Gauri at the time, or he had just married Gauri, and her
Oh.
parents were already like, you know, oh my god, like, you know, our daughter's marrying a Muslim and an actor and
Yeah.
an orphan. And then they were just like, what the hell is happening? And he just got so furious. He beat up the journalist. He went to his
Yeah. I've heard this.
house, and like, yeah, and then he got arrested. And then yeah, it was like a whole thing where he was just like, you don't come after my family.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So much to unpack there.
From Jane Austen to gossip, you know.
I know.
Yep.
From Jane Austen to Stardust. Wow. We're like highbrow, we're lowbrow, we're queens of Bollywood.
For these and other like insights into old Bollywood, please join us on Khandaan.
Yes. Tell the people,
Yes.
tell the people where to find you, Amrita, in case they haven't already met you.
Yeah, so I co-host a podcast called Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast. It's available on all your favorite platforms, literally Spotify, Apple Music, like whatever you want to hear it on. Both these ladies, Beth and Pitu, are some of our favorite guests, and they've been on multiple episodes. You can see my background here.
So
This
good.
is something that my co-host Joy designed for our Badshah episode that came out like a couple of months ago. And it's part of our Patreon merchandise as well. So yeah, if you would like to listen to our episodes, please follow us on literally any platform that you would like. And also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Khandaan Podcast.
It's the Patreon is fun. I'm a member. I highly recommend it. Amrita, what about your book YouTube?
I have not updated it in a while because I got sick last year, and I haven't had the strength to actually like go back to making like videos in a while, but I still have all my videos up if
There's
you
good
would
stuff
like
there.
to take a look. Yeah.
And
I will be updating it at like a later point. Maybe
my
later this year.
personal favorite episode from your book YouTube is when you rank Poirots. If you're an adaptation fan and you like Agatha Christie, she's got a great
Yes.
episode on all the Poirots, and she is in fact correct about them. No surprise.
I also have an episode that I did for Jane Austen. There's like a Jane Austen festival, like an online festival that happens every year. And I did one where I talked about Jane Austen adaptations in Indian cinema. So if you want to like check that out also. It's called Amrita by the Book. And it's right here on YouTube.
We will link it in the show notes. Thank you so much for being a filmy lady with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Like, you're my favorites and I love you.
We will have you back soon.
We love you too.
Yes. Our next episode is on Wahida Rehman, I believe.
Ooh.
Yes. It's part of our legacy series where we are looking at female megastars of the past. We did one episode already on Nargis, and the next one will be on Wahida. I know I'm going to review Guide, and I don't know yet which one Beth is going to talk about, but we really wanted to take a look at some of the older actresses and some of those older like black and white movies and stuff. So we do those once in a while. But I love Wahida Rehman, so I'm very excited about that episode.
I love Wahida Rahman. I can't wait to watch
Yes.
you guys on it.
I feel like we can't be friends with someone who doesn't like her. Like we
Why
can't.
would somebody not like Wahida Rahman? That's just wrong.
Exactly.
Not a
That's
thing.
like a tip off, right? It's like, you are wrong. I don't want to be friends with you, right?
We can accept a few people who don't like Shah Rukh, but we will not accept people who do not like
No.
Wahida Rahman. So
No,
Yeah.
that
that's
is not.
warned.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, don't forget to like and share our episode. Don't forget to subscribe. We do want you to subscribe and then write comments. I do read all the comments and I respond to them. So we would love to hear from you and what you thought about this episode of Filmy Ladies. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.